Hey, in today's video, let's talk about some of the most successful business strategies and how they have been applied to different tech products. Hey, my name is Juan. If you're new to the channel, I talk about software products, how to build them, and how to build business around them. So today I want to talk about some of the strategies that some companies have applied to their products to make them some of the most successful ones. I'm going to talk about specific companies and products and how they have implemented these strategies. The first one is Apple's ecosystem approach. Apple's ecosystem approach comes from probably different points of view. One of them being that Apple wanted that all its products work with each other seamlessly. And this is something that they might have had problems if trying to take a more standard approach. The same applied for all the components that they were building. They started building specific and custom components for Apple because they wanted to reach the levels of performance that they needed for and required for the products when as opposed as buying off-the-shelf components, which always are going to have some limitations and some trade-offs. Of course, the components that Apple also created have their own trade-offs and their own limitations, but they are made specifically for Apple, which means that they usually are going to perform better the purpose that they have. And of course, another aspect of this approach of Apple is that there is a very cohesive user experience. User experience is probably, and design is probably, are the things that define most what Apple is, especially compared to competition. If you think about it some years ago. Nowadays, of course, competition has been catching up and is different, especially if you're just comparing product to product. But when you think about the whole ecosystem, Apple is probably still one of the ecosystems that offers the more cohesive experience to all the users. This ecosystem doesn't come without a price and potentially without a backlash. Obviously, Apple has then problems to communicate with others because basically what Apple has done is build like walled garden that they call around its products. All the products from Apple work really well with each other, but that means that usually with other products, when they had to communicate, the communication sometimes is not as smooth as with other operating systems because they have a more open approach. And you can also see this with Apple's approach to different connectors and so on, because they create their own dedicated connectors, which makes it difficult then to be compatible to typical connectors, which you can see how long it took for them to adopt something like USB-C when it have been in the market available for other products for a long time. And this, of course, has a backlash from the point of view of the potential users, because some people don't want to feel like they are forced to use only Apple products. And this might or might not be the intention of Apple. Some people will say that definitely this is the intention of Apple. Some people will say that, well, maybe not. Anyways, let's not go there. But the reality is that if you go into that ecosystem, then you end up having to buy the whole ecosystem. And many people want to be more flexible in the way that they chose their different devices. So just imagine a laptop or a phone. But whether you like it or not, the approach of Apple, you cannot deny that it has been a successful one, and it has been one of the most successful companies in the last decades compared to many other companies out there. The second strategy I wanted to talk about is Netflix's personalization algorithm. Netflix has gone through many stages and many successful strategies. So if you're interested in strategies, definitely a company that you should pay attention to, because they have gone through big jumps in their career or in their lifetime of the company. So I think that this is one of the companies that if you are interested in successful strategies, you should go and check it out or research more in the history of Netflix. Why is it so successful when it comes to the recommendation system? It's like, well, just think about Netflix when it came as an app. Already at that point, there was pretty much nothing, and certainly there was nothing at that level, streaming services that were working so seamlessly at that point. And with Netflix came a new concept that was not available before, which was binge watching TV shows. That probably was not something that was a thing before Netflix came, because Netflix started to offer you a whole library of TV shows and also releasing new TV shows or new seasons from the get-go. all the whole season, so you could just watch it in one go. This was something new. And then on top of that, they had this recommendation system that identify the TV shows or the genres that you like, and it was building recommendations on top of them. If you see other platforms out there, they're still nowhere near where Netflix is. And I'm not going to talk about the catalog, that's a different story. Different companies are going to have different catalogs, obviously, HBO, Disney. But when you think about the level where Netflix is, the search, the recommendation, how you find the different how to say TV shows or movies or whatnot is super smooth compared to others. So you can search directly by genre and it's going to return you much better results than any other product or app out there is going to do. And it doesn't matter what you search against, it's going to always return you much better results than any of the other competing products that there are out there or other streaming services. So Netflix really managed to increase the engagement that the users have with the platform, especially when you think in the very beginning. Nowadays, of course, competition has catch up and all these things has happened, but I think that is still, when it comes to the usability and not to the content, but just to the usability of the app, Netflix is still way ahead of any other competitor. The third successful strategy that I've seen implemented by some big companies or products out there is Slack's viral growth through teams. Slack has really taken a deep dive with especially development teams. I think that software companies were probably the first ones starting adopting it, but you can see Slack being adopted nowadays in many, many companies. And if you ask probably, I don't want to say 90%, but a big majority of the teams, what would be their preferred tool to be used for communication purposes internally, it's going to be Slack. It has a ton of integrations with different tools, different productivity tools, for example, that you're going to use, like Atlassian tools, Jira, Confluence, so on, or Notion, or whatnot. It has a ton of integrations that is going to make your life much easier. It also provides a very flexible way of arranging teams and also integrating with other organizations in a very seamless way, whereas something like Teams, Microsoft Teams, has much more problems from my point of view of how it handles internal teams versus external teams and how do you get notifications and so on. And it gets to end up being, although offers potentially more as functionality, it ends up being a more complex platform to use. And this is something that I think that why Slack is really successful is because it has managed to keep a very simple approach that it really connects with the users and with the teams that had to be using that tool. And I think that the growth from Slack, as opposed to other companies that has been more like selling to upper level or upper management team, which is probably the approach of something like Microsoft with Teams, Slack has grown in a very organic way through word of mouth, by the teams using it and the teams spreading it within the companies and from company to company. Because whenever somebody changes job, goes to a new company, and that new company is using another communication tool, they're going to go like, hey, why aren't we not using Slack, which is way better for us? And that's how Slack has been growing. The fourth successful strategy that I want to talk about is Google's data-driven innovation. Google has taken over the world by just creating a small tool initially. Let's not say small because it wasn't that small. It was simple in the way that it was solving a relatively simple problem that had a very complex solution. Google search, when it was invented, it was just completely different from what it was out there. And Google has had typically an approach of being very data driven to use or to make the decisions. And not only on this, and very experimental in the way that they just launch new products and based on the utilization by the potential users, based on if it's getting traction or not, they have been being adopted by or being actually developed further by the company. Google, you can see the usage of data when you go and do search. When you go and do searches, usually nowadays is very common that Google gives you a very strong suggestion of what you might be aiming to search. Usually it's very good to understand this. And this is not just search. This is based on different machine learning algorithms and AI that is used behind the scenes. So when we talk about AI nowadays, it seems that everybody is just thinking about AI as ChatGPT, somebody that is just going to be an assistant that is going to do your job and take over the world and so on. But AI, machine learning, has been here with us for a long time. Google has been taking advantage of it, and it has done a great job when it comes to recommendations. When it comes to the recommendations, for example, in YouTube that you see from the videos that YouTube recommends you to watch. It's true that YouTube, and this is maybe a little bit of a criticism, I see that YouTube tends to go a little bit into a rabbit hole of the, let's say, 4 or 5 genres of videos that you watch, and then you get served only that type of videos. And there is little discovery of new channels. For example, I would like to see that. And not new channels as new channels in the same topic, but as new topics. And I think that maybe YouTube is not doing the best job there. But when it comes to know what type of videos I would like to watch, because I've been watching these ones, and which one I would like to watch next after a video I'm watching now, usually in the recommendations that I see in the side panel or that I see in the end of the video, usually there's always a couple of videos that I'm very interested in watching. So definitely is doing a good job in making those recommendations based on the data, based on the profiles that they are building of myself, but also people and cohorts, and how they bundle these similar people with similar interests, and how I can recommend those videos that are going to resonate with them. You can see that they have done the same approach or similar approach when it comes to advertisement. Advertisement nowadays, of course, Google is a super strong player, not the only one, obviously, but a very strong player, especially when you think about search, maybe more purpose-driven advertising, from the point of view that when you are in Google, when you are in YouTube, and I'm searching for something, it's because if I'm searching for a vacuum cleaner, let's say that 90% of you, myself, are not going to be searching in Google for a vacuum cleaner unless we want to purchase it. So usually when you search for a topic, it's because you are close to make that decision. Maybe not if you're a car enthusiast and you're searching about cars and looking for information on cars all the time, because probably you cannot afford to be buying cars all the time. But for most of the people, when you go to Google, when you search something, and especially if it's an item, a product, most likely you might be thinking about purchasing or might be considering doing a purchase decision. That's when Google, and I think that YouTube and all the products from Google basically have a very good algorithm that is going to do quite good recommendations of the different products that you will be interested. It might not give you exactly the one that you want. That is true. But sometimes it takes you to a place or to a shop, online store, where you actually go and find what you were looking for. So it's actually getting you closer to the desired output, of course, from Google, which is getting revenue from advertisement by taking you to the shop to go and purchase. The fifth strategy is Amazon's customer-centric innovation. So Amazon, I'm thinking more about the online store, and Amazon Web Services here have been very customer-centric in the development. They have been taking a lot of requests and a lot of concerns or needs that the customers have into on board of those products, basically improving the products continuously. And by the products, I don't mean the products that you end up buying in Amazon. Usually Amazon don't sell those products, they don't own those products, but the services that they build for you to purchase those actual products. So when you think about the online store, that's the product. When you think about the different servers and the different computers that you can rent in Amazon Web Services, that's the product for me. And here you can see how many people nowadays, where this is offered, have things like Amazon Prime, and they take a lot of advantage of it. And they do a lot of purchasing through those channels because they are very satisfied. They get a very quick deliveries. They get something that they can get delivered within the day to their home. It's true that this is not a service that is offered in all the countries, but in those countries where it's offered, usually works quite well. At least that's what I heard, because where I live, That's not the case. And if you think about the needs that people or teams have to develop cloud services, SaaS businesses, Amazon Web Service is almost the de facto service to use. It's true that Azure has been growing a lot in the recent years. Google's cloud is maybe not as fast and not doesn't have such a wide adoption as the other two, but certainly AWS is still the one that most of the people are using. And from my point of view, this is something that has been growing by AWS bringing and making it easier for developers to build their cloud products or the SaaS businesses within the AWS environment. Just to make it as easy as possible, that's something that has been very successful for them and something that really has taken them really far. So Amazon has done a great job by introducing the customer needs and the customer feedback into their development of those tools to make sure that they are really covering the needs and solving the problems that those customers or those users have. So I wanted to talk about these companies, and I wanted to actually give examples of companies that have implemented these successful strategies, companies that you are probably going to be familiar with, because I didn't want to necessarily talk about companies that you are not going to know, although I might consider that in the future, because that can be also a good way to analyze and understand strategies from companies that are potentially going to be successful in the future. But with these companies, what I wanted to show is that there are going to be strategies that are going to be very successful that can drive companies there. But you might be asking yourself, but hey, Juan, I work here in a, let's say, new startup or not very big business, and these examples are not relatable. Yes, they are not, because most of us are not going to work in one of those companies. But the idea here are the strategies. Think about the strategies that they implement. They don't think about where they are. You don't have to think about reaching that goal. You might dream about it, about reaching it someday, but don't try to put all your eggs in that basket. But think about those strategies that really have helped them build a journey, walk up or climb up that mountain that they are in the top at this point. You can make decisions based on this. There are very successful strategies that they have taken. These strategies are not necessarily the correct ones for you. So think about the ecosystem from Apple. It might be that you don't want a closed ecosystem. It might be that you need an open ecosystem because of the industry that you are in. And that's completely fine. Understanding what the problems are or what the challenges are and how to overcome them, that's going to be the key for you to define successful strategies. What you don't want to do is like a cookie cutter strategy that you pick the more popular topics and I'm going to do them because everybody's doing them. Don't do that. Concentrate on your challenges. Just pick a few and go over them. At some point in the future, when you overcome those ones, you will have new challenges. You will have new strategies to overcome those that they are going to get you closer to where your goal is. Think about this, make a plan, understand it properly, and from there, go on. So these were just an examples of some companies with their successful strategies. There are a ton of them out there. Is there anything that you would like me to look into? Do you have some examples of successful strategies? Please share with us in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I post videos relating to products, software products, how to build them, and how to build successful businesses around them. So if you're interested in this topic, please consider subscribing to the channel. I will see you in the next one, and remember, stay safe.